Hey guys, and welcome to Quality Shot Football and the fifth edition of the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, do you remember to hit that like button and subscribe if you're new? And if you are watching or listening on a podcast platform, do make sure you follow, leave a review, and of course, rate the podcast as well. I've got with me today Ash and Arangan, so the two A's. Ash and Arangan, how are you both doing?
Good.
Yeah, very well, thanks. I like that, the two A's.
Yeah, the two A's, double A. So we've got, Ash, of course, like myself, a Chelsea fan, Narangan, avid Arsenal fan. So, I will, of course, be talking about the top four a little bit and whether Chelsea might bottle it. But I think we've got to start off with, the real football, I guess you might call it, the Champions League, where Arsenal, unfortunately, weren't even able to partake in it this year. Sorry, Arangan. And for Chelsea, we had to, we unfortunately ended our chances at, well, to be fair, now the finalists are Real Madrid, so I don't feel that bad anymore. But I mean, what a week of football. I guess we can start off with the first match of the week, which was Liverpool versus Villarreal. I mean, I thought Liverpool had it in the bag. I mean, a 2-0 lead going into the away leg. And I thought, okay, it might be a little bit tight for them because 2 goals is not like a huge amount. I always feel like 2-0 is the danger scoreline where it's like teams get a little bit comfortable. They think, oh, well, we've got a cushion, but it's not so much of a cushion that, you can kind of take a foot on the pedal. But a lot of teams tend to. And then it's like 2-1. It's like, oh, squeaky bum time. And then that's kind of when you're in trouble. And I felt like they kind of were asleep for a lot of it in that first half, especially. And the second half, I think they did get away with it a little bit. But yeah, in the end, obviously won that tie 3-2 and then won on aggregate 5-2. But I think that scoreline kind of flattered to deceive a little bit for sure. But Villarreal will feel a little bit aggrieved, I would say. And for Liverpool, it's job done. And I think they'll breathe a sigh of relief. And obviously now they're going to be hoping to get revenge over Real Madrid after, of course, a couple of years ago, losing in that final with that absolutely ridiculous overhead from Gareth Bale, which, even though he's still at Real Madrid, obviously he won't be playing. Don't see him scoring that again. But what a goal that was. I mean, just reminiscing over it. Anyway, guys, what do you think? I mean, Aaron, I'll go to you first. I know you had a couple of comments in the football chat that we have as well. And what were your thoughts on the tie? I thought Liverpool just, almost scraped it, I thought, in the end.
I mean, if I was Jurgen Klopp, I'd be deeply worried. Just the manner of the performance Liverpool put in. Having said that, there's not many ways that you can play in a Champions League semi-final and still get to the final when you put in a performance like that. I think credit to Villarreal, they did really well to get back into the game. I'm sure all of us would have thought that the tie was pretty much over after the way Liverpool dominated the first game. But when it was 2-0, sort of thought, there might be something here. They're quite an awkward team to face. Sort of even when Atletico played Man City, it was quite similar in terms of the way that they play, the way they set up. They're quite happy to defend sometimes and they're happy to go on the counter. I think in key areas, though, sometimes you do see it. They just lack that extra bit of quality. And I mean, to be harsh to him, really in goal, I think probably cost them the tie with his mistakes. And you could see that there was an element of inexperience. So after the first goal, and then I think it was the third when he came rushing out and then just got beaten. And those things you just kind of learn. And I mean, Liverpool have been in similar situations before. They've kind of thrown away easy ties with through mistakes. So I think it's a thing where a group of players where Villarreal will grow from it. But I think it was the right result in the end in terms of the quality. But Liverpool did definitely get away with it.
Yeah, it was an interesting one, wasn't it? And I think the goalkeeper mistakes, well, I mean, Liverpool are no strangers to that with Karius obviously in that final against Real Madrid talking about that. So, a very interesting one. And they probably were thinking, oh, that's what it feels like to be on the other end of it. Ash, what do you think of the whole tie?
I mean, it was a shock when Villarreal got it back to 2-2. I mean, going in at half time, you're thinking it could go either way, but clearly Klopp said something at half time which got a reaction out of the team, because second half was I thought one-way traffic pretty much. I think Liverpool, their substitutes paid off. I think Luis Diaz again showed. We mentioned it before, but he again showed his quality, and I think they gave the door was slightly ajar for Villarreal, and then quite quickly slammed shut by Liverpool, who were quite clinical in that second half. And I mean, when you look at the overall aggregate score of 5-2, I don't think it tells the full story, but Liverpool's quality that we thought would get them through the tie did show over the course of the two legs. So deservedly in the final.
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest thing as well is that we talk about how it wasn't a particularly good performance, but what you do find is that even the greatest teams kind of in the past or recent past, like that Barca team, obviously, that had like Xavi, Iniesta, Busquets, Messi, etc., and even the Real Madrid team that won 3 out of 4, Champions Leagues, 3 out of 4 years even. They always had at least one tie where there was a kind of a slice of element of fortune. It's very, very, very rare. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, where they've gone through a whole, for example, Champions League campaign where there hasn't been at least some sort of slice of luck where they haven't played particularly well. I think the best teams are teams that end up becoming champions, and they always, it's such a cliche, but especially in the Premier League, they always say the teams that win the Premier League, they win it by not just playing the best football and playing the best across the year, but on their worst days, they still manage to grind out results. I feel like that is what has been ingrained into Liverpool. If we think about how a couple of years ago they were celebrating kind of drawing against West Brom right in the last minute, and they had like a kind of a wave and a standing ovation and cheering and clapping with the crowd, and everyone took the mick out of that. But I think what Klopp has done is he's kind of tried to instill this kind of fight and I think resolve in the team, and it's gone from that to oh, we're pretty good now. We've got a good enough team. We're winning. Right, we expect to win every single game. Even if we're playing badly, we need to find a way. I feel like that's what has been ingrained into this side, and that's why they are on the hunt for the quadruple. That's why everyone's saying this is a top team and has the potential to be one of the greatest teams ever, is because I think it's not just, they've got fantastic personnel, but a lot of these players, they didn't start off, especially when they came to Liverpool, as superstars. A lot of these players weren't superstars. They were players that, okay, they might have been quite good. Like, Salah, okay, fine. He had promising games to Chelsea, great. Played pretty well at Roma. But no one thought this is someone who could win the Ballon d'Or. This was, okay, he's a pretty good winger. He can maybe bring some pace to the side. No one thought he was going to bang in 30 goals a season, right? So I think, and he's just one of those players, but Klopp has clearly ingrained some sort of mentality into the side where it's a winning mentality, but also a gritty determination that, okay, we want to play good football and we want to tear teams apart. But when that's not working, let's try and find a different way. And I think that's what they've been doing, because I don't think they played actually. There have been some games where they played really well, but the back end of the season, and I think that's also might be to do with fatigue because of the way they play. It's like really intense, high press, etc. You can't play that every single game for 90 minutes. It's just impossible, right? Especially because of the amount of games they're playing at the moment. They're in the hunt for 4 trophies. So I think they will have to grind out some results like that. And of course, come the Champions League final, they're going to hopefully, though they will be gearing towards playing their kind of top level. But if they have to grind it out and it's a bit of a scrappy one, which sometimes Champions League finals are, I don't want to kind of put a damper on it, but sometimes Champions League finals can be a bit boring. Finals can be. Then they at least have that mode. So I think that's a good sign for sure.
Just quickly on that, I agree for sure that they've got that. For me, it's a combination. As you said, there's like that ability to grind out results, win when you're not playing badly. And then I always notice it as well when a team's really on it, as well as when they're spreading the goals around the team, and players who don't play much, like Origi, they're scoring in the Merseyside derby, Robertson, Fabinho against Villarreal. And I just noticed that in those sort of title winning teams or successful teams that, you know, when it's good, everyone's firing. It doesn't matter who you bring in; they're all going to do that job. And I think Liverpool have that clear characteristic at the moment, which it sets them up well really for the final games of their season.
No, agreed. And I think we've kind of touched upon the quadruple, but and I know we talk about it to some degree every week, and I think that's just because it seems so, I don't know what the word, it just seems so almost incredible to even happen, and almost, you know, kind of improbable, to be honest with you. But we're near the end of the season, and they are, you know, they've already won one competition. They're in two finals of the other two cup competitions, and they're in the hunt for the Premier League. They're only 1 point behind, so they could potentially now realistically win 3 trophies. The Premier League is technically out of their hands. They need City to slip up, so fine. But they could potentially win 3 out of the 4 at least. The other 2 are in their hands, and they'll go into both those matches as the favourites. So it's a very, very interesting kind of end to the season for them. They could end up with just one cup, and it could, like, probably would be perceived as a failure given that how far they went. No one's going to remember. People might remember, oh, they were really close, but that'll fade over time. And people will just say, oh, that was a pretty good season. We had a really, really good team. We should have won more. So it is really make or break now, because, and I say this a lot, but no one really remembers who made the final. You know, after, you might remember it for a couple of years, but after a while, no one cares. No one remembers. It's, oh, what amazing. You know, if Real Madrid won 3 out of 4 years, right? I think one of them was Liverpool, one of them was Juventus. I don't even remember the other one. And that's just because, not that I don't really care. As in, like, you know, it's great, but as in, you know, Real Madrid were just dominant in that. So I think it was Atletico maybe, but you know, I don't think, oh, what a great Atletico team that was. They made the final. I just think Real Madrid was so dominant, right? So I think they have, yes, it's incredible that they've managed to even get into this position, but now it's their execution, right? It's like, can they get it done? The last hurdle, and it's the most important one, but they've done all the legwork. Can they really make it count? We'll see. We'll see. Very intriguing to see if they do. And on the flip side, of course, the Real Madrid Man City game. I mean, how crazy was that? After the Liverpool Villarreal match, I thought it couldn't get any crazier. But I thought, hold on, we've got Real Madrid and City, and at one stage it was like, oh, hold on, 1-0 City. This looks like it's going to be. Oh, it is like, it's okay. It was a pretty good game, but I just thought nowhere near as good as the first leg. I just thought, yeah, okay, City are going to get it done. Finally, they're going to make another final. And then who knows, maybe, you know, they're going to play against Liverpool. And then it's kind of this, you know, they're running parallel, you know, for the whole season. And it's like, you know, this kind of weird parallel that's gonna happen, and they're gonna come to a head, you know, in all the competitions apart from the FA Cup. But in the end, wasn't to be. They, I think it's fair to say, they capitulated towards the end. I mean, what is that? Rodrigo scored in the 90th minute and the 91st minute. And then obviously they conceded the penalty, right, by Benzema, because they were level on aggregate in extra time. Mahrez got them the lead in the 73rd minute. All they had to do was hold on for 20 minutes. Now, that's easier said than done away from home in the Bernabeu, with obviously then they bring on Rodrigo as well, and he's really, really, really direct. He's really dangerous. They've got Benzema, Vinicius, and obviously that star-studded midfield. But surely they should have done better. Surely. Ash, what do you think?
Oh, it was quite funny because I had work to do for the next day, so I had it on the stream on my phone, and I thought, you know, it's fine, it'll finish after, you know, 90 minutes, and I've got enough time to work. But then the first goal went in, and I was like, oh, hang on, and you kind of just felt something happening, and so when the second goal went in, it was obviously scenes, but yeah, I wasn't too shocked in a way, because you just felt the momentum shift, and in a way, it was building to something. Something had to happen. You know, Red hadn't I don't think they had a shot on target all game. City had those chances as well once they went 1-0 up to just kill the game. They were trying to walk the ball into the net, it seemed like. Grealish, was inches away. But then, I mean, to be fair, Rodrigo is turning into the greatest super sub going, and he took both goals really well. The first one to getting at the front post, and then the second one. Because what was crazy about that, it wasn't there was someone that headed it towards goal, but he timed it. He timed his jump so well and flicked it into the net, and that was really impressive as well. And then just the shift in atmosphere as well, because the Bernabeu just erupted, and they carried that into the extra time. And then a bit like in our match against Real Madrid, in the Chelsea match, they got that early goal in extra time. Again, Benzema always has to have some say in the game, because that's what the best players do. They can be absent all game, and then when it matters, they're there. And I just think City were just so stunned, taken aback by what had happened, and they just couldn't muster anything. And again, Real Madrid, but again, it's similar to the Chelsea game. The way they sort of run down the clock, the way they draw fouls, time waste a bit. Obviously, annoying as anything if you're a City fan, or as we were as Chelsea fans. But it's very good game management, and then they mastered it, and it was just an amazing comeback. The Champions League just it never fails to deliver. Every year there's always drama, and it's guaranteed entertainment every season.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's definitely been good value this year, that's for sure. Especially with Real Madrid. I mean, they've really had the great escape. I mean, against us, I think it wasn't really. We nearly kind of did the great escape on them. It was almost like the reverse. It was almost like the reverse Uno card on them after they beat PSG. And you're like, oh, here you go, or but it just wasn't
the
to be.
Miracle in Madrid. It was
Yeah, so we play Yu-Gi-Oh, and you had the trap card, and it's like we were basically winning, and then they were like, here you go, turn my card upside down, like turn it face up, and it's like, oh, great, reverse, here you go. Yeah, no, it's the same thing again. It was just crazy. Like, I'm still upset about that Real Madrid loss that Chelsea had. But look, I mean, they are, as you said, game management is, I think, the right phrase for it. They clearly know, and I think if they were 1-0 up and in the same position as Man City, they would have held out for those 20 minutes, I feel. Or even if they hadn't, they would have only conceded one goal. I think the issue was that they conceded two, right? In 2 minutes. That was what the issue was, because they concede one, they still win the tie. And obviously, you don't go out to say, oh, yeah, it's fine to concede a goal. But, you defend, you're flipping your heart out. You just throw yourselves out everywhere. 20 minutes, right, to make the Champions League final. You've done so well for the rest of the tie. And then it was just 2 minutes, literally 2 minutes. And that was it. It was like, as soon as they went to extra time, I just knew they were going to lose, because the momentum was gone. It shifted so much. And the only way they were going to be able to get back into it was to somehow pick themselves up and dust themselves off and go again. And just to mentally be able to do that, after, I think conceding 2 goals, and it's just how quickly it would have happened. It would have been like, goal, okay, go back to the kickoff, goal. Wait, what? Hold on. Extra time? And then mentally, they would have been thinking, as they approached the 90th minute, we've done this. We don't need extra time. Some of the players might have even expended more energy, because they thought, we don't need to play an extra half an hour. Because they would have thought, okay, from the 85th minute onwards, they probably would have thought, okay, well, if they score, they're only going to score one. We've got this in the bag. And I think they maybe switched off a little bit. And then in the end, it cost them. So it was just really weird to see. And it was almost, I think, indicative of how their whole Champions League campaigns have gone in previous years, where it has been falling at the last hurdle. We talk about Liverpool having to kind of break that last hurdle. We'll see if they can do it. But for City, they've got a track record at falling at the last hurdle in the biggest competition. The Premier League, not an issue. They want everything else. The Champions League, they seem to have an issue with that. And I don't know if it's a mental block. I don't know if it's just the massive pressure on them. But it's definitely something that is festering. And of course, now Pep under pressure as well. So, yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? What do you guys think?
I think.
I haven't even asked you. Wait, have I asked you about the match actually yet?
I'll do
What do you
both. Yeah, I mean, we've all seen games where like one team is knocking on the door and they eventually get the equalizer, and this definitely wasn't one of those. If I was a Man City fan, I would be wondering how we managed to lose that. And it, from an Arsenal fan, it's easy to kind of to see it, but it's definitely a psychological element. You can't go from it's literally quite simply, it's easier to win at that point. And they had 5 minutes left, and they I don't understand how they lost. It was two simple, easy balls into the box, and it kind of comes back to this thing where you were saying, where you've got a 2-0 lead. Do you just go for broke? Do you double down? Do you attack? Do you get the second goal, completely kill that game off? Or do you defend and hold it? And in the end, they ended up doing neither. And that's pretty much, I think that's why they lost. The Guardiola thing is interesting. Just as a side, he's an incredible coach. He sets up magnificent teams. The way he thinks about the game is amazing. He's definitely one of the best ever. But I don't think it's a coincidence that he hasn't won the title, the Champions League, since Barcelona. And he's been in incredible Bayern Munich teams and incredible Man City teams as well. And I know you're both Chelsea fans, but as a Man City fan, that final last season, the way that they were playing up until that final point, you would have thought surely they have to win it. And I think he does do this thing particularly in Europe, where he starts to overthink, and he pays the opposition maybe a bit too much respect. I think a few years ago, I think the last time anyone seriously talked about a quadruple for anyone was Man United, towards the tail end of Fergie's season. And I remember in that final, they played Barcelona and they got absolutely destroyed. And the thing with him was, when he used to play with Barcelona, of course you have Messi in your team, but he didn't care who the opposition was. They were just going to play the way they played. They knew they were better than them. And it's what Liverpool do. They know that if they turn up, no one is going to stand a chance. Doesn't matter who you play, doesn't matter how you play, we're going to win. And I think a few times with Barcelona towards the end, he got a bit burned, and with Bayern Munich, and he's become a bit more pragmatic. And you just feel that if Manchester City had just gone from it from the start, the way that Real Madrid were playing for 80 minutes, they could have been 2 or 3-0 up in the 60th to 70th. And when you look back, that's probably going to be their biggest regret.
Yeah, I agree. I think they tighten up, right? I think he doesn't open up as much in the bigger moments anymore. And you make a really good point about, I think obviously he's definitely had these, and I go on about it most weeks, that, Pep will do something really weird where he'll play like, the left back up front or something. And it's just like some kind of really weird tactic. And he's done that in the past. And I think I completely agree with you. I think with Barcelona, he was really comfortable. He knew he had this incredible team where not only did he have an incredible team, but he had the best player in the world at the time, and or whatever. If you 1 out of 2 anyway, if Ronaldo was there as well, and he was just so good that it was like, okay, we can play so well, but even if we play really well and the opposition managed to soak that up, we've got this player who can just create magic in moments, and he clearly just believed that, look, we can do it. We can be anyone, as you say, playing our best football. And I completely agree. Towards the end of the Barca, so I think they got trounced by Bayern. I think it was at the end of his Barca legacy, and then and then ironically, the next year, so I think they got beaten like 4-0. I think it was by Bayern in one of the Champions League tie. And the next year, he was at Bayern, and I'm pretty sure it was his first year. And then he got beaten 4-0 by Real Madrid. And it was those 2 years, I think. So back to back, he got beaten 4-0 in the Champions League, and he probably thought, hold on, we're way too open. Like, we're getting destroyed. So maybe I need to rethink it. And I get adapting, because I think the way that maybe he played at Barca is fantastic and it's amazing to watch. But I think, like with anything in life and like with all sports, you have to adapt with the times. And that's why I think, for example, someone like Mourinho hasn't had as much success, because look, he's still having some, sort of success. Like, he's just made the final of the whatever Europa Conference League with Roma, but it's not the final of the Champions League, right? So it's a massive difference. And I think he's someone who struggled maybe to adapt as much with the times. And I do think, for example, Klopp has done well with it. I think Guardiola, look, let's be fair to him. I mean, he's still been winning titles, and I know he spent like over $1 billion, £1 billion even. I get that, spent a lot of money, but he still has adapted to some degree. I think the issue is, and as you said, Arangan, is that he doesn't trust himself. And if you don't have conviction when it really matters in the big moments, in the crunch moments, then how can you expect your team to have conviction in those moments? And I think his mentality and maybe his wariness in those moments reflects on his teams in those really kind of crunch moments. And I think that's what happens. And that kind of makes sense as to why the results are being what they have been. And I agree with you, even though we're Chelsea fans, me and Ash have said in the past that Chelsea should have lost that final. We were not the better team on paper. They should have trounced us. But it was weird. They just didn't. They did something really strange where I think they didn't play a striker right, or something weird. Like, they did something tactically strange as always. But to be fair, against Real Madrid, there wasn't really anything weird. To be fair, you could maybe say, why was Foden on the wing? Like, he's been so good to the middle or like inside forward. Maybe he should have played a bit, kind of been a bit more involved. But really, I mean, there weren't really that many tactically weird issues. So he stuck to the team that he probably thought was the best. I think maybe the issue is that, like you said, they were kind of in between. And when they went 1-0 up, he probably thought, let's protect the lead, which is probably against his ethos of thinking kind of like to his roots, really. And he would have told them that, and they would have said, hold on, we don't really know how to do that. We only know how to kind of go out and then try and just, kind of build a lead that's unassailable. And so they would have thought, okay, let's try and do it. But then it's kind of against their nature. And so they got caught in between. So I agree. I think that's probably what happened. And it was probably really strange for them as well, and the players, to kind of do that. So they could have just done keep ball, but in the end, it was just a really, really strange result. And obviously, it definitely doesn't reflect well on him. I think they made the final once, the semis once, I think quarterfinals. So I think quarterfinals 3 times, and then they lost in the round of 16 in his first year. So, they lost in the group stages in his first year. So there has been gradual like improvements, but then this is the first year where they've gone back a step, right? So they've made the final. The natural step is to win it, and they haven't done that. So now it's like, oh, hold on, kind of investigation into Pep Guardiola. So it's an interesting one. Ash, do you think if he wasn't to win the Champions League at City, would it be coined a failure, his tenure at City? The reason I ask that is because, yeah, he's won league titles. He's won like whatever, the FA Cup, the League Cup. But then so did Mancini. So did Pellegrini. He's playing some great football. Okay, fantastic. Great to watch. But in terms of actual results, he hasn't done much more than them. He's broken a couple of the points records, whatever. But let's talk about it from just kind of a trophy aspect. What do you think?
No, it's a really interesting discussion, and I think it will prevent. I mean, even not just looking at Guardiola, but this City team. If they don't win the Champions League, I think it will be a big dent in any sort of conversation you have about the best teams in history. If we're just looking at the best sort of Premier League teams, how they did in Europe, this Liverpool team they could say, no, we've won the Champions League. Mourinho's Chelsea. Okay, Mourinho didn't win it, but that group of players, the Terrys, Lampards, Drogba's, they won the Champions League. Man U's teams from '99, and then also the awful night in Moscow in 2008. They did it. Okay, sadly, Arsenal got to the final, but didn't do it there. But close. So I think it would really dent them, actually, and obviously getting the 100 points, that was an amazing achievement in the Prem. But I think it would really be a dark cloud looming over Man City and Guardiola if they didn't do it. And don't get me wrong, I think if they get Haaland in the summer, then they've got every chance next season. And maybe if I look at it positively, it's learning from failures, and they could build character from this and go again next season. But I think it is very strange, actually, that they haven't won it yet. I mean, yeah, Guardiola does seem like he's as a lot of the greatest minds outside of football, he seems like he's a chronic overthinker and like always second guessing himself. And sometimes that obviously leads to incredible results. But then with that, you kind of have to accept that actually sometimes things can go horribly wrong. And I think City maybe have struggled with that. They've not really benefited from being kind of the underdog in a way. And they've had this expectation sort of enshrouding them. And compare that to us in the final last year. There was no expectation on us. We were just happy to be there, to be honest. And our players responded to that in a way. And Real Madrid the other night, not really much expectation on them. They weren't really favourites for the competition, weren't favourites for this tie. But it kind of as a contrast to City, they've got this belief in the Champions League, and it doesn't matter which Real Madrid team they put out, they have this history with it and this special relationship. And City have the opposite. They have this kind of sickness towards it. It's not a healthy relationship, City and the Champions League. And I think that's played on them and played on Guardiola. And
it's a bit like PSG in a way.
Yeah, true.
Really it is. I mean, PSG, I guess they got bought out a bit later, but I think in probably what? I think was it maybe 2 years difference? Maybe, I think 2 years later. So I think, or 1 year, but either way, like PSG in a couple of years, if they haven't won it, it's going to be like, oh, they're already asking questions, right? They were in front in that tie against Real Madrid. They capitulated as well, very similar to City. Money can buy you a lot, but it can't always buy your character. I think that's the issue. So you've got to build it. I mean, Guardiola's definitely got abundance of that, but I agree with you, Ash, in terms of definitely a chronic overthinker. But you say about the learning curve, but how many times can you learn, right? From losing 6 years in a row, it is now. He's been there 6 years. So what, are you going to just keep on losing I mean, they've now gone through everything. They've lost in the semis, they've lost in the final, they've lost in the quarters, they've lost in the group stages. I mean, that's it now, right? I mean, from last year, really, they had all the experiences. This should have been the year where they kind of piece it together. And look, I get if they had lost. I think the issue is that they were in a winning position. I think that's the problem. If they'd got trounced at home, they went into the second leg and they were like, okay, this is, and they did their best. It was a valiant effort, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's like, okay, well, they just got outplayed. I think the issue is that they outplayed Real Madrid for the majority of the tie. Real Madrid had the great escape and they switched off for 2 minutes and they lost. I think it's a case of the one that got away, and they know that they probably, they know they should have won that tie. They should be in the final. Would have been a great opportunity. And they've done all that hard work through the season to get to that stage. And they've blown it. And I think that's the problem. Whereas, as you say, like with Chelsea, even last year, we were kind of just like, well, we probably a bit lucky to get here. But then we also know how to win and manage and win titles and win cups, and you through the nice little shade there at Arsenal for never winning the Champions League as well, which is all really nice. Aaron kind of appreciated that, but yeah,
I could have not mentioned them at all, but you got to give them. They did make it to the final.
Yeah, but
they were unlucky as well, weren't they?
See, the issue with all those English teams making the final in that period is that Barcelona just destroyed us and all other English teams in the final, right? We didn't play them in the final, but we played them in the semis. I was there when Iniesta scored that last-minute goal against us. I was at Stamford Bridge, and Essian obviously scored the left-footed volley, great volley.
Did you hear the referee from that game
crossbar.
just came out? Like, there was an article or something today about how he admitted that we should have had a penalty or whatever. So we should have had about 8 penalties.
Yeah. And then
I still get upset about that Arsenal Champions League final. We literally,
really?
It's because Lehmann got sent off and we lost it in about the last 10 minutes.
Yeah. It was Belletti, didn't Belletti score?
Belletti nutmegged the keeper.
Nutmegged him, yeah. Yeah, from an angle. Such a weird angle as well. That was bizarre. Such a bizarre goal as well. Yeah. That was, I mean, thing is, that was it. They had to do it then, right? Because that was Thierry's last year, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think he stayed on for like a year or two more, but I mean...
It was a year, wasn't it? Oh, yeah. A year more, yeah. Because you made the final in 2004, right?
2006.
2006. Yeah, so you stayed one more season, I think you did. Yeah. And you left after. So, yeah, that was kind of make it or break it. But, yeah, it's incredible that you guys didn't get further in the, when you had the Invincible season and stuff. But the problem is when you go so deep in the league and at that stage, so the European teams, we're just so strong, especially the Italians as well. Defensively, we're just solid.
The thing with the Invincibles, though, is it was a great achievement from the league, but we were actually losing games throughout that season. It's not as if we went through the entire season.
Yeah,
didn't lose a single game.
You drew a lot of games as well.
Every other competition, but we won the league.
Yeah. Also, you drew a lot of games,
that
right?
Year, actually, in the semis or
yeah, we did quarters. Yeah, Wayne Bridge.
Yeah.
That was like my earliest memory of football.
Yeah, he scored in the last couple of minutes.
That was a painful memory.
Mate, we were not a very good team. Well, in comparison to Arsenal, we shouldn't have won that. To be fair, we kind of stole it. Wayne Bridge came and stole it.
Pre-Mourinho, Ranieri was the manager.
Yeah, Ranieri, exactly. Yeah, and then we lost to AS Monaco in the semi-finals. Yeah. And that was Morientes absolutely destroyed us. I literally cried after we lost to Monaco. I must have been 2004, I think. So that would have been 18 years ago. So I was 9 years old. Yeah, I was literally crying. I was like, because AS Monaco, at 9 years old, I don't think I've ever heard of this team before in my life. I'm like, we're going to beat them. We're going to make the final. And then Morientes, this flipping Spanish striker, just absolutely destroyed. I was like, what the hell is going on? And we just got.
And it would have been Mourinho's Porto.
Mourinho's Porto won that final.
Yeah, and then Porto won in the final. They had Deco. Deco was so good. Unbelievable player, but anyway. Yeah, we had him at Chelsea for a couple of years. He was great, to be fair. He's towards the back end of his career, obviously, because he'd been at Barcelona as well. But he was so good, and he was also he was the original Iniesta, really. So he was at Barcelona, and then Iniesta replaced him at Barcelona, right? He was coming through the youth system, but Deco, that's how he was in the system with Xavi, and they had, I think, Rafael Marquez at the time, or Yaya Toure. As a CDM, so that they kind of were building.
Van Bommel for a while, didn't they?
Yeah, Van Bommel as well. Yeah,
the Barca team now.
Yeah, Van Bommel flipping out. Yeah, exactly. He was just the enforcer in there. Classic, absolutely classic. But yeah, anyway, yeah, memories. It's so weird, right? Because it ended up being Porto Monaco final. Such a weird final. And Mourinho won it with Porto, which is just and then it was next year he was at Chelsea. I'm the special one, and the rest is history. But
that was probably the last time he played attacking football in his whole career.
Oh, shade throw by Aaron Gann. Can I say something? We scored over 100 goals in one of our seasons with Chelsea with Mourinho there. So I'm not having the first spell at Chelsea. to be fair, the first spell at Chelsea, we weren't bad and the reason why is because we had Robin, Duff, Joe Cole, and Sean Wright Phillips. We had 4 really good wingers, like in the prime of their careers. We had Drogba, Idiger Johnson, and what was his name? Oh, what was his name? Kesman.
Kesman, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Crespo,
Kesman, yeah.
for a while, didn't you?
Who? Sorry.
Yeah,
Crespo.
Crespo,
Yeah, and Crespo we had as well for a little bit. That was after though. I think that was that after or before? Either way, yeah.
After.
Yeah, so we had him as well. But yeah, so I mean we had some really good players and Lampard was in his prime as well. We had Ballack as well for a little bit. Essian was unbelievable when Mourinho was, oh my god, Makaleli as well. So like we just had like an incredible team and things he had players where he knew you could trust them. Whereas I feel like after that Chelsea team, I think he fell out a little bit with like the media and stuff. Then also, I think he got not stale, but I think he got a little bit cynical the older he's gotten. But I think he's a bit more worried about like losing games rather than wanting to win and open up. So I don't think, yeah. I mean, this is a discussion for another day, but I think he definitely has played attacking football since the Porto days, but it's not the type of attacking football that we can compare to like a Guardiola or a Klopp.
Yeah.
It's quite different, right? It's a very different brand, but he'll still score goals. I think maybe attacking football is not the right word. It's attractive football, and I'd agree with you.
The interesting thing is because you've got to remind me with the Chelsea example, is that all of the teams, if you go back to kind of Real Madrid, when they had their original Galacticos. So I know they won the league, Champions League in like 2000, but then
Ronaldo and
Beckham,
Figo, Beckham, yeah.
Every team,
because that Brazilian Ronaldo never won the Champions League.
Yeah, and this is the thing. So every team that has gone on and just spent big in like a short period of time, for whatever reason, has never won the Champions League in that kind of generation, and they always fell short in one of these games. Like I think Real Madrid lost to Man United, and Beckham scored in that game, and then he went the season after. And then Chelsea lost to Barcelona, and that was probably your best chance of winning it.
Yeah. Ronaldinho, little shuffle as well.
Yeah, and then for a few years you guys were in and around, but you were never quite there. And then you have Man City now, where they've started to come up, and now you've got PSG as well. Bayern Munich were kicking around for a while, where they've spent I just think the bar for these teams is so much higher, because even if Man City won the Champions League and they scraped it and they played like defensive football and they won 2-1 in extra time, no one would give them credit. People would say, well, you spent 60 million on strikers or whatever. There with PSG, with Messi, you're expected to blow every single team out of the water. And that's the only way. Even then, people will say, well, this is just money from your owner. Whereas if you took a team that maybe has slightly less resources, Liverpool's like a popular example, but could work with Chelsea, anyone. And they're a bit plucky, they get a bit lucky, they win the league. People say that's an amazing performance. But like the amount of pressure that these guys are under from Man City and PSG is just a completely different. It's just different to everything else.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that, because I personally, as a fan, of course, I want to see attractive football. I want to see attacking football. I want to see goals. But if they were to win it and not play great football, I'd still be like, they would personally, for me, they'd have the same amount of respect. Like they've still won it. I think the issue is that they might be under pressure. Not just, I don't even think it's from fans mainly. I think it's to do with the owners. The owners want, like they're in the stands, right? Every game, they don't want to sit there throughout the whole season watching a team that they've spent. For example, City have spent £1 billion, right? They don't want to sit there in the crowd thinking, I've just spent £1 billion on this, and this team is sitting with 10 behind the ball, right? Like trying to counterattack, basically, right? With 2 players, kind of on the break, right? They want a team which has the ball for large periods of time, and obviously the better the possession, and then also playing quick football, attacking football, blowing teams away, 4-0, 5-0, and that's the expectation, because they've just plowed money into the team and into the club. And so then there's that expectation, I think, of attacking football. And I think that also then comes into when owners start trying to get involved in like buys and stuff. And a good example, I guess, is Abramovich buying Torres, right? Well, when Ancelotti didn't want him, we already had Anelka and Drogba, and then he bought Torres, and it was like, where does he fit in? And then we just chucked him on the bench because like he was making the same runs as Drogba, and Drogba was like one of the best strikers in the game at the time. So I think it's a really interesting point, but I think it's personally the owners. I think the owners, when they've spent so much money at these clubs like PSG and Man City, there's an expectation that, guys, you better play some damn good attacking football. Like, you better buy some players that are going to excite us, because we don't only want to be known as a team that wins stuff. That's kind of great, but we want to win and also be seen as like one of the greatest teams ever for the type of football we play. And I think that's why they brought in Guardiola. Like, let's be honest, that's why they would have brought him in, because they want to play attacking brand and also win stuff. He is the pinnacle of both at the moment in the game. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. But I don't know. What do you think, Ash? Do you think that they would get not as much credit for winning if they were just playing more defensive football?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, potentially because of the years of strife they've had with the Champions League, just getting over the line would be such a huge relief, a huge celebration that I think maybe it would be forgotten. I think about our team that won it in 2012 after years a much worse really story of suffering that built up to the team that won it in 2012. And that 2012 team did not play good football in the Champions League. It was old-fashioned partner bus, and then Drogba was just on a different planet. And it was football stripped back, and it was football that was mainly just about, giving it all for the shirt, and it was determination really that won us the Champions League. And those comments, about parking the bus, whatever, they really didn't stand up compared to actually winning the Champions League. So I think the ultimate satisfaction that is winning the Champions League, there is an element of it doesn't matter how you do it as long as you get over the line. And then you can nitpick down the line, but just winning it is so big that I think City certainly would be okay just winning it ugly, because just winning it means so much to them.
Yeah, no, agreed. And it's so weird as well, like that Real Madrid team Aragon you're talking about. Like, you just think about how good like a team they had, but then the issue was the balance, right? They had they bought Michael Owen. He was on the bench for a lot of it. He actually had a pretty good goal to game ratio at Real Madrid as well. He actually said he really enjoyed playing that, and obviously he managed to end up playing with Raul and the Brazilian Ronaldo R9. So he loved it, and he scored goals. To be fair, they actually really liked him in Real Madrid, but they had such a good team that he just couldn't get into the starting 11. I mean, their starting 11 had Raul and Brazilian Ronaldo. I mean, you don't get no one's going to get into that team, right? But then they had Roberto Carlos, a left back, and then the midfield was just unbelievable. I mean, they had Beckham, Zidane was playing left midfield, Beckham right midfield. They had Figo as well. How are you supposed to fit everyone in?
Makelele at some point.
Yeah, Makelele they had as well, and they had Guti as well.
Jonathan Woodgate,
yeah. I mean, Galactico, yeah, exactly, yeah. No, he was in there. You're right as well. Yeah, he was. Yeah, it's such a weird signing as well, bizarre. And then he got injured, and then he was out. I think he barely played any games for Real Madrid. It's such a weird. They had Fabio Cannavaro. He was unbelievable. I mean, one of the only defenders recently to win the Ballon d'Or, and rightfully so. What a defender he was. And who did they have a right back actually? Do you remember?
Salgado, I think they had a few Spanish players.
Yeah,
like Hierro, Salgado, Casillas.
Yes, yeah, Casillas obviously, yeah, and then Salgado. That's it. Yeah, he was just kind of rough and tough, and then Guti at the time as well.
Guti
Guti wasn't even seen
so
as
good.
Guti wasn't even.
spent my whole life playing FIFA like when I was a kid with that Real Madrid team.
Thing is, Guti was someone who actually like there wasn't really much talked about him because there was all these like superstars, but he was quality. Like he was really, really good.
I saw a vid the other day. He did this. He's through on goal, and he's 1-on-1 with the keeper, and he back heels it, and Benzema's running in behind and taps it like and just finishes. It's like the most like 3,000 IQ player I've seen on a football pitch. It was crazy. He could have just scored, but he back heeled.
And you know what that tells me as well? And it just reminds me about how long Benzema's been at Real Madrid. Like
Yeah.
he's been there for because he was there. They bought him from Lyon like when he was like 21, wasn't he? And then basically, and then he was on the bench because they had Higuain. I don't know if you guys remember, Higuain was basically playing for them up front, and then they sold off Higuain eventually, and then he basically came through. But he was on the bench for a lot of time. Well, Marcelo's been there the longest, right? Because they bought him when he got bought in like 2004 or something, 2005. Like he was bought as like a 17, 18-year-old from Brazil, and he spent his whole career in Europe at Real Madrid, which is pretty. Well, I mean, it's amazing to think about. To be fair, I didn't even realize he'd been there that long. So
I still remember when Benzema was smashing in for Lyon. Do you remember when they got to like a quarter-final, semi-final on the Julia?
Yeah.
And they had like an incredible team, and Benzema was one of them. And he was like one of the first to go.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, yeah, he was quality.
Was it a similar time to when? Because I know there was that famous window where they bought Ronaldo, Kaká, Alonso, maybe.
Yeah.
Was it that window? Was it like around that?
No. Before then.
Before, yeah.
Wow. So it was before then because they had Higuain. So think about they had Higuain up front. He was at the club at the time. Benzema. He was on the bench.
Because they got Kaká, Ronaldo the same season.
Yeah, they had Kaká, Ronaldo. Obviously, they bought like Xabi Alonso. Who else did they buy? Robin was before then because they went through like a Dutch phase where they bought like Robin, Van der Vaart, Van Nistelrooy, like Schneider. It's such a weird. I don't know. They obviously went through some kind of Holland phase. Maybe they had like a Dutch recruiter or something. But and Robin obviously loved it. He just cut inside on his left foot, just curling in goals for fun. But so they went through that phase.
I thought they signed Essien at some point.
Yeah, they did. I think Essien they signed. I want to say they signed him on loan for a season. I think he was there for a season.
Adebayor they got us there.
So Essien was there when Mourinho, I think, was there, and he played there for a season. Yeah. But he still kind of wasn't. So I know he had like a really bad injury at Chelsea towards the back end of his Chelsea career, and then I don't think he kind of ever really recovered from it. But yeah, Adebayor.
One thing I'd say about Mourinho's Real Madrid though is after he left, they became a really like cynical gamesmanship team. You know, Sergio Ramos like switched, and then after that they started winning everything.
Yeah.
It's a correlation. Like, the more cynical you are, the more trophies you win.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Yeah, it's nuts. Ozil, of course, as well. Like Ozil was unbelievable at Real Madrid. Arsenal ruined him. Arangan, man.
I still remember the day.
You guys should be ashamed.
It was like I can't think of a single player that we signed. Not even like 7 years ago. You know when? Maybe it's like when you got signed Shevchenko. Maybe when you got Hazard. You know when you're like, we could actually be like, it's the promise of it.
Yeah.
Of course, they eventually flop, but
it's the idea that to be fair, that day was iconic.
To be fair, Ozil had like a few seasons where he was unbelievable in the Premier League as well. Like he was really, really good. Like ridiculous, like the goals that he scored where he was like kicking the ball into the ground on ridiculous, and like just like some of the like assists, it's just unbelievable player. Like I think he was like, it's another story, but I thought he was really mistreated at Arsenal. I think there's some political issues going on there as well. It's just I think with Shevchenko is an interesting one. Shevchenko, I wasn't that excited about. I don't know about you, Ash, but because I knew he was so old. I just had a feeling like, why are we buying such an old striker? Like I know he's unbelievable at AC Milan, but I was just thinking like this is such a weird. And at the time, we still had Drogba. I was like, it was exactly the same thing. It was because we bought him before Torres, right? Yeah, we bought him before Torres, and I was just like, well, why have we bought him? And then he struggled, and I was like, well, I'm not surprised. Like,
They
he's
can't
really old.
coexist. That's the thing. These big.
Falcao at Man United, like, did you expect him to score goals? I mean, like, he's really old. If you want Falcao to score goals, then buy him when he was at Atletico and he was banging in goals for fun. Like, he's like one of the best strikers in the world. Now he's old, he's injured, and like don't expect him to score goals now, right? Like, at least now, for example, they've learned their lesson. Like, they bought Cavani, but they don't expect him really to score goals, right? It's like if they bought Cavani and said, lead the line for us every single game, try and score us 30 goals a season. Like, that's not going to happen. But yeah, really bizarre, really bizarre. But yeah, Shevchenko was a weird one. Hazard I didn't even know much about him when he bought him, to be fair. So I wasn't that excited about him. But Oscar, I was. Mate, he was the 2 goals he scored against Juventus on his debut, Champions League, the one where he just like dinks it around the corner and then curls it top corner. Oh, mate, unbelievable! Well, like,
Him, Mata, and Hazard, that front, that attacking.
Yeah, and then we had Schürrle on the bench as well, who could come on. That was like,
I'd say, even though Oscar was an amazing player, scored some amazing goals, I'd say actually, especially Mourinho, putting our faith in Oscar is probably the worst thing that's happened to us long term, because it meant we didn't get De Bruyne. De Bruyne, like, it was like Oscar.
Yeah, because we shifted De Bruyne to the right wing. Yeah. That's why. So we basically had that whole period as well. We had Oscar, Hazard, we had De Bruyne and Salah as well. They were all in at the same period. But then Salah played a couple of games and he was like, "Now, like, basically he's not good enough or whatever." Yeah. That great decision that was.
Then as well.
So Lukaku was before that. Lukaku was before that. So he was basically towards the end of Drogba's career. We bought him at like 18. He was really, really young. But then we like shifted north on loan to West Brom. So he was on loan at West Brom.
About that.
Yeah. So for quite a few seasons. But then so then we and then De Bruyne, he only played like a couple of games and he played like right wing. And then he basically was like, Mourinho was like, not good enough. I was like, okay. And then again, not a great decision. But the Oscar one, I think the issue with the Oscar thing is that we basically ended up playing Mata. He wanted to play Mata on the wing. And Mata's a 10. So he played Mata on the wing, then played Hazard on the wing, which is fine. And then there's a really weird phase where we played Hazard as a 10. And then he shifted Oscar to the wing. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, Oscar's a 10. It was just a really, really bizarre like decision. And so Oscar was running up and down the wing. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, but I loved Oscar so much when he was at the club. I actually have a shirt with his name on the back. And then he only lasted like 2 seasons, didn't he, or 3 seasons? Then ended up going to Brazil. I was like,
the shame
China.
Is, like, he could have had a
do you know what? When I watched him play, he reminded me of Kaká.
Yeah.
And I literally thought, like, the way that he played, the style, his ability, I was literally like, he can be like the next Kaká. Like, that's what I thought. And I literally, growing up, Kaká was my favorite player. Like, I used to love Messi and stuff, but Kaká, I was just like unbelievable, like so good. I just wanted to play like Kaká, really, and I was like, it's so good. And then Oscar, like, I was like, oh, come on, like, we've got someone like him. Oh, here we go. And then we just, don't know what happened. He just basically like buggered off to China for money.
Yeah.
Now he's still there, I think, as well. He's been there for ages. Anyway,
we could turn back time.
What a weird avenue we've gone down.
We were talking about Man City.
Exactly. Anyway, I guess to finish up then, top 4. So Chelsea look like they might blow it with 66 points. Arsenal 63. Tottenham 61. Manchester United they've played 2 extra games, to be fair. They're on 58, so I think they're probably out of it. They might have the Europa Conference League to look forward to, though. Potentially, if
that big competition, yeah.
Oh god, I shouldn't make fun of it. West Ham fans have been crying after yesterday's results, so I probably shouldn't say anything about it. But yeah, look, I mean, I think between Chelsea, Arsenal, and Tottenham, it is all to play for. I know there's 5 points between Tottenham and Chelsea, but we're handing out points for fun. I mean, we lost to Everton last week, drew against Man United. We lost to you as well. Charity case for you guys as well, apparently. Yeah, what do you think, Aaron Gann? I mean, where do you think Arsenal finish?
It's all about momentum. I know you asked me this a few weeks ago after we lost to Palace, I think, and it was looking down and out. I think Liverpool Spurs will be a big game, and if Liverpool beat them, Arsenal necessarily don't need to win against Spurs, which I think even despite what we're doing at the moment, in a game like that, going into it, it might just end up being cagey. So I think the biggest game won't be the North London derby; it will be Liverpool Spurs. If Liverpool beat Spurs and then they go into the North London derby, it changes things because it means we just need a draw. And we can win our next 2 games. So I think Arsenal are a bit more of a comfortable position. Tottenham definitely have to win everything that's in front of them, and that's always going to be harder. Yeah, I think at this point I'm going to put a limb out and say it's ours to lose. But yeah, I think Chelsea will. When you look at it, you think about who has played well enough to stay there, and I think Chelsea have done enough to stay in the top 3, definitely. The next top 4, I mean, all of us have been relatively equal. I'd say Manchester United have been probably more consistent than anyone else. West Ham have been good, but they just lack that squad depth, so they throw out the odd bad performance. So I'd say between Arsenal and Spurs, but I think we've just edged it.
Okay, so you don't catch us then. I think you might. What do you think, Ash?
No, I think. Don't get me wrong. It's not been a good few weeks at all. But I think we have done the job over the course of the season, and some of these results are indicative of the fact that the players think that they're there, and they're kind of in a limbo stage where like they've got the FA Cup final, but that's about it. And I think the win against West Ham probably sealed it. But just looking at our fixtures there to come, I'd say like, if we bottle it from here, that's something else. I'm not usually a massive optimist about Chelsea, but I feel like the job's done because mainly because of the fixtures we have. I think Leeds away might be a bit tricky because there's fighting relegation. But then we should be beating this Wolves side at home. We should be beating Watford at home. I think we need 6 points for sure. And if we can't get them at Wolves home on the run they're on, and Watford at home, final day of the season, with Watford probably down, then yeah, I mean that'd be the bottling of all bottling. So I think we're fine. I hope so. But yeah, I think it probably will be. As the table is now, I think it will be Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham. I think Arsenal have done brilliantly in the last few weeks because they've had tough, Chelsea away, West Ham away is a very tough game.
Chelsea away is not tough at the moment, Ash.
Very good point, yeah. So we'll exclude Chelsea away. West Ham
Everton
away,
beat us.
that was awful. But Arsenal have done really well to turn it around from those 3 terrible losses to win 3 games. Man U at home as well. Actually, Man U probably not a tough game. But on paper, 3 games that Arsenal probably wouldn't have won last season or the season before. But they've done really well to turn it around. And I think, especially the West Ham away win, should just get them over the line. And fair play they deserve a lot of credit, I think. Because people will throw the excuse that, okay, they're only the Prem to compete for. But given where this Arsenal team was, back-to-back finishing 8th or whatever, and the laughing stock of the league, to turn it around and actually have a very good season, I think they actually deserve a lot of credit.
I think
there you go, the laughing stock of.
I think we have to build on it. I think we definitely need centre forward. We started the season with Aubameyang, so I mean he wasn't playing at his best, and we're finishing it with maybe Lacazette and Nketiah out of contract. So
they both out of contract.
Yeah, so Lacazette has talked about going back to Lyon. Nketiah I think will probably extend, but they're just kind of they weren't sure initially. But I think the problem with Arsenal sometimes it's one step forward, two steps back. Even when we were in the Champions League, we were still selling some of our best players. So unless you build on it in a meaningful way, which Arteta has done actually, to be honest. If we get the right players and invest well, then we should be okay.
It's interesting because Arsenal, they kind of always fall into this trap where they don't get players to sign a contract beforehand. They let it run down to like one season left, or like last season they go on a free, or they basically say, well, we've only got 1 year left, so then they go for like a really cheap price. So even if you know that someone might leave, you just get them to tie down to a contract and you say, look, we're going to let you leave, but we want you to go for like, obviously your market value. And the only way to do that is to get them to sign a contract. So it's
because
just
they're
really
usually the best players in our team. We're desperate.
yeah, but it's not even. I think it's also you never used to have a director of football, right? So I think Wenger, it basically all stemmed from when Wenger was first there because he was doing everything, and it's like you can't expect him to do it. It's not his fault, but obviously he just kind of didn't think about it, and then so a lot of the players just kind of left, and you bought a lot of players for a lot of money, and then they just left for freeze, and you ended up being at a deficit, and then you couldn't buy the players you wanted to. But you're gonna have to shell out some money on a striker. It looks like. Actually, I wanted to ask you before we wrap up, Arangan Martinelli, because like I haven't watched a lot of Arsenal games recently. But like he seemed to be someone that was going to be like the next big thing at Arsenal, but he hasn't really done that much this season. What's his progression been like? And is he a winger? Is he a striker? And do you think he is going to be a starting?
He started off. We signed him as a striker. He definitely has technique. He's really, really good. He works hard. I think he just doesn't have the numbers yet to lead the line. He gets in good positions. He creates chances. He's got a few goals, to be fair to him, and he's quite injury prone. But I think going back to the whole Lacazette thing, and Lacazette, and before him we had Giroud. I think to be a top striker in the top four, you need to be getting at least 15 to 20 goals a season if you're leading the line. And there hasn't been a striker at Arsenal who's done that apart from Aubameyang, actually. And Martinelli has been quite good. There's been talk of him even being linked to Liverpool. I think he needs to. I don't think he's actually had a full season where he's played every game, and I think that's probably been the problem.
Yeah, I think injuries is an issue though, right? It's cause for concern because if you're getting injured every season, then ends up becoming a recurring thing. So hopefully he manages to stay fit for at least a season. We see what he's about, because I just remember he had a few, like half a season where he kind of just ended up being like looking really, really good. And then Arteta put faith in him, and then seems to have kind of fallen out of favour a little bit generally. And obviously being injured wouldn't have helped. But yeah, interesting one. And then lastly, just on the relegation zone, I think 3 teams obviously in Burnley, Leeds, both on 34 points, and Everton on 32. They've got a game in hand though. Who, if you guys were had to pick who's going to get relegated, I mean, Watford and Norwich obviously down 22 points, and Norwich City 21. I think is pretty inevitable. There's 4 games left, so I mean, Watford technically could catch Everton if they won all their games and Everton lost all of their games, but I think that's going to be really unlikely. So let's just stick to Everton, Leeds and Burnley unless you're really confident in Watford. How do you think it's going to go? I'll go with you, Ash first. What do you think?
I think that Everton win against us was pretty big, and they've got a couple of pretty good fixtures, I think. So I think that's sort of the turning point for me in their season, and I think they will be all right. So I think probably Leeds will be the one that drop, but it'll be tight. I think though that was just a really big win for Everton and a real confidence boost. And I think they've got a couple of home games or definitely winnable games. So I think they should be right. And I think Burnley have actually done really well in the last couple of weeks. Under, I don't know, Ben Mee's doing some sort of coaching role, isn't he? And another guy, but
player manager.
They seem to have turned things around a bit. So yeah, I'd probably back Everton and Burnley and say Leeds will go down.
Okay. And again, how about you?
I mean, I'm sorry to all Everton fans out there. I was sort of hoping they'd go down actually, in a savage way, because I think sometimes you see it with clubs when they come towards the end of the Premier League. Newcastle were doing this for a while. It's the way the club is run, the type of players they get, management. It's just a vicious circle, and then the only thing that shocks them out of it is relegation. And maybe with the result against Chelsea, they might stay up, and it will be Leeds who go down. But I don't think that they'll magically be away from it next season. So I say I'm hoping Everton, but I think it will be Leeds.
Everyone was low key thinking like can Everton go down? That maybe it's just because like they're a big club and it'd be quite funny to see Everton in the Championship.
Yes, because they've never not been in the Premier League since its inception. Well, since even before it was like it wasn't the Premier League, but it was whatever. It was Division 1 or whatever. Yeah, they've never not been in the top tier football. So like it is pretty incredible if they were to get relegated. I'm gonna go with Burnley just because I want to be different. I'm not Leeds and not Everton, but I don't know. It's a really interesting one. I get what you're saying, Aaron, as well. Sometimes you do need to shock the system and get it out. I do think though, it's too big a club though not to be. Like, can you imagine like they're playing Championship football at Goodison Park?
Do you remember when Newcastle got relegated when
Yeah,
Alan Shearer was their boss, and they'd been like in the Europa League for years?
Yeah. But can you also imagine, can you imagine the amount of especially because there's only a park that splits Goodison Park and Anfield, they're going to get mocked so badly. Especially, can you imagine if Liverpool do the quadruple and Everton get relegated?
Yeah.
Oh my god, Merseyside is going to Liverpool's going to be insufferable. Like, if you're in Liverpool and you're an Everton fan, you may as well not even show your face. Just forget it.
Yeah.
Like that's going to be it's going to be dreadful if that happens for them. Commiserations in advance if it happens. But yeah, anything else you guys want to touch on before we wrap up? No, all good. Yeah, thank you guys if you have managed to stay with us till the end after we've gone through a couple of massive tangents, but that happens when we have a chat. It's all good. Podcast number 5 for QualityShot Football. And yeah, please do like the video if you have stayed with us till the end. Subscribe as well. And of course, if you are listening or watching on a podcast platform, you can leave a rating or review, read us, help us out, and also do make sure you follow or subscribe depending on what podcast platform you're on. Ash and Aaron, thank you as always for being on. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks. Of course, we've got the FA Cup final on, so we'll probably do a preview next week because I think that's that weekend coming. Well, the weekend after that's coming. And then, of course, the Champions League the following week, if I'm not mistaken, or the week after, actually. I think it's the 2 weeks in between. So, yeah, really looking forward to that. And then we've got a World Cup year as well. So, yeah, that'll be cool later on. So, looking forward to that. Thanks very much, guys. Stay safe and well. And we'll see you on the next video.